Welcome to the Aura Insight. Today we are gathered with Zahid Rahman, the co-founder of DM. And today the topic is influence.
Thanks, Rami. Thanks, everyone. So influence is a really interesting topic. Recently, I've been told, a lot of the initiatives, ideas, things that I've released or able to release, I think had a lot to do with influence. So I didn't actually realize that was one of the key ingredients. But after, I looked into some of the recent projects that we got off the ground, and I realized influence was a really, really key factor. So I break down the power of influence, I call it, into 3 sections. I'll name them and I'll talk about each. And of course, jump in if you have any questions. So first one is credibility, right? It's very important to have a lot of credibility so you can use the influence. Now, our art of negotiation is number 2. And finally, always be selling, right? So I'll get started with the first one. So one of the real important factors of influence is your credibility, right? It's how honest you are, how much integrity you have, because you're influencing others, right? So what does influence mean? It could be to start a new business. It could be to release a new product. It could be to get married. It could be to start a partnership. It could be to move. It could be to convince your spouse. It could be to convince, your boss, your employees. So one of the important factors is credibility, and namely your honesty, integrity. If you have integrity, people believe you. Your words mean a lot more than if you didn't have integrity. And then how do you build integrity? How do you build that, that credibility is your track record. If you're unproven, you're new to the company, and, no one, even though you might have, credentials, you might have things that you accomplished in other companies, you come in, a lot of it doesn't mean anything to this company, right? So you have to have a proven track record. When you have a proven track record of success, then people will start believing your words a lot more, right? So before I get into my next piece, any comments, concerns?
With credibility, and I think you're totally right. Sometimes you have a new hire, a new team member on board, and they want to hang on the coattails of what they produced at previous organizations. You're on a new team now, right? We're not going to look at your track record from the previous team. We want to see how you're doing on this team. And so there's a saying that I kind of go through every day, which is like, the rent is due every day. So your rent in producing results, your rent in providing success to the organization, it's going to be due today. And then even when you pay it today, tomorrow it's going to be due again. So that's just like a kind of a saying that I kind of abide by.
No, absolutely. Like a lot of people want to, get, pass in the fast lane. They just want to cut right to the front of the line. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. You have to build integrity. You have to build track record. And obviously, the more importance you put on the past, less credibility you have, right? If you're at a mindset of like, hey, this person doesn't know me, I'm sure they have a little bit of respect because of, me getting this job or in this position, but you have to know that people don't really care, right? So if you acknowledge that people don't really care and treat it like, hey, your name means nothing, your past credentials mean nothing, and you're trying to prove yourself, then people will give you that, fast track, right? So it's very, very important to use, to effectively use track record.
Just one last point on that. Any of you guys have a friend or somebody you knew who just never got over high school? Right? Okay, because they were stuck in the past. Don't be that guy. Okay, don't be that guy. If you're in high school, don't be that guy. And if you're still talking about the sophomore game that you got the winning touchdown, homie, you gotta get over it. All right? Yeah, no one cares anymore, right?
The next one is art of negotiation. So I think this is very, very, very important. So a lot of people, when they observe me or, they see how I did it. And sometimes I'm talking about ideas that were stuck in basically in limbo for like 2 years. I come to a company and they've been trying to get this thing off the ground for 2 years. I come in within 2-3 weeks, it's done. Like it's signed, sealed, delivered. We're at least signed to for approval. Like, yeah, we're going to do it, right? Obviously, that project might take weeks or months, but they couldn't even get a buy-in from the company, the management or the owner or executives. So I'm able to go in there and get that, right? And I can give examples on another time, but essentially several examples of times where an idea was just sitting there, some people try to get it passed. They weren't successful. I come in and I'm able to get it to the goal line. Now, what I used is the art of negotiation. It's so important when you want to use influence to make change, whether it be in your family, in a job, in your business, whatever the case is. The art of negotiation is extremely important. So when you come in and you want to convince, so say I have a chat with Jason, I want to convince him to join my podcast. I have to have some integrity, right? I have to have some track record, right? So once you see, yep, Zahid knocks those checks those boxes, I have to also use the art of negotiation, right? It's a win-win. It can't be only win for me. It has to be a win for him, right? So you have to give and take. You have to be prepared when you come in and have a discussion about, this idea has been sitting in for 2 years and what's going to be different? Why am I going to come in and make a change? Well, I have to give and take. I have to realize why did it potentially get rejected in the past? And when I can use, a give and take, like, the company's interest or the boss's interest or the management interest was here. And this is probably why they didn't get it approved. Maybe it's money. Maybe it wasn't in the budget. And what makes me, come in and get that? Well, I have to know that probably that was the reason why they didn't get it passed. I have to know that that's probably the angle they're going to take. So I have to be ready for a response. So I should be able to be prepared ahead of time to use give and take, right, in the art of negotiation. Next, thinking on your feet. So you might go in there thinking this is how the conversation is going to unfold, right? You might have, 5 things that you think this is what's going to, Rami's going to say, or Kurt's going to say, or Keisha's going to say, Jason's going to say. I'm going to come in and maybe the conversation goes totally in a different way, right? So I have to be able to think on my feet, right? And I have to go in for the kill. So thinking on the feet is very important, knowing that, okay, this wasn't really the way that I expected the conversation to unfold. And maybe the way the conversation unfolded, maybe it's better just to okay, you know what, let's not bring this up right now because it'll be the wrong time or place, right? But maybe it is the right time, right? Or maybe you went for another topic or another discussion and then the opportunity presented itself. You gotta think on your feet, right? And then the next point is go in for the kill, be assertive. So as soon as I start, smelling blood, as soon as I start seeing that they're agreeing, there's some buy-in, there's some agreement there, I have to go in for the kill, right? Now, I would rather get a yes today, even if it's 75% of what I want, than 100% 2 days later, because I don't know if that opportunity will present itself, right? I'd rather get a close right now, as big or small as it might be. Obviously, there's like a factor that you might want to say, well, this anything less than this, it's not a win.
A minimum viable product, once again.
Yeah, exactly. So when you decide that, hey, you know what, this is something I'm agreeable to, just go and get that agreement, right? Because you might not have that opportunity, right? And sometimes loud voice is needed. You might have to be assertive. You might have to be, the loud voice there. You might have to go against the grain. You might have to be the one, the bad cop, whatever the case is. Be willing to do that. So that's the art of negotiation. Love to cover the last piece, but I'll ask if there's any questions on the art of negotiation, how important that is.
All I could do is recommend there's a book called Never Split the Difference, and it's all about the art of negotiation. I recommend it to anyone who's kind of interested in that. And ultimately, what we're really talking about is the art of communication. Negotiation is just a form of a subset of that. So, I mean, I'm fully with you. And the truth is, we are social beings. So a lot of the times we think that the receiving end of whatever you're talking about is going to be a fully rational being who's just listening to all the variables. No, we're social beings. Sometimes the loud voice, sometimes the assertiveness, sometimes just the emotion and the passion is all you really need to move the needle in your direction, even if rationally it doesn't make sense. So that's all.
Well, perfect, because that's exactly my last thing is always be selling. So the bigger the project, the more against the grain, right? Like I was giving an example of like something that I was working on. I joined the company. It was something that I've been working on for 2 years. Then no one was able to get it passed, and I was able to get it passed in one afternoon, right?
Damn.
And it was basically what's that?
𝐂𝐍.
Well, it was, I used like, credibility. I had credibility built up. I used my negotiation skills. I went in for the kill, thought on the fly. I didn't actually expect that was the day it was going to happen. But hey, opportunity presented itself and I went in for it. Now, always be selling is important because always be selling could be selling your credibility, right? Or it could be your negotiation, right? Like, hey, this is what I want. Hey, you know what? How about I give you this and what do you give me that, right? So it's extremely important to always be selling. Now, as I mentioned, the bigger the project, the more against the grain, the more expensive the spend, the more I expect that dialogue or that project or the discussion to take, the campaign to take. So realize that if it's something that's a small ask, it could be in a conversation. But it's a bigger ask, it's not going to be in one conversation. It's going to be a build-up over multiple conversations, multiple text messages, multiple emails, multiple meetings, sometimes very, very subtle. Sometimes you plant the seed. Sometimes it's a more direct ask, but it's a long campaign, right? To win that, right? So you have to realize that the bigger the project, the bigger the ask, the longer the campaign. You have to know when to pick the spots. Try to be subtle, right? Because people can, feel phoniness. They can kind of tell that, hey, you came in only because you wanted to ask me something. But sometimes it's good, like just be honest, right? Because it's better just to say, hey, I just asked you for this reason. They might rather respect that more than, oh, no, I was just calling to say, hey, how you doing? Maybe I was calling to ask you for money, right? Like, like people will realize that, well, you didn't call me for 2 years and you asked me for money. Come on, really? But sometimes they would respect you more just being honest and saying, well, I just called you for money. Right. They might not be happy, but it might be it helps your credibility, to be honest. But yeah, so try to be subtle, right? And if people can pick up on phoniness and can pick up on when you're trying to sell something to them. So if the case is it's kind of obvious, just own up to it and just move on.
But going for the ask. Always ask. Always don't be scared to ask. Basically, don't get friend zoned by the situation, right? So, right, you're too subtle, then unfortunately you're just gonna get put in a bucket. So
that was it. Like that's influence. It's a very, very important thing for business. A lot of new leaders, new managers, entrepreneurs. If you're struggling on getting things to the goal line, you're not able to convince a team to come together. You're not able to convince your manager to sign that check or someone to hire you or, whatever the thing you're asking for. It's very, very important to use
flex that muscle,
the power of influence.
Yeah. And for anyone who's in a capacity, like not in a career capacity to test influence, just do it on your group of friends. You be the one to pick, or even with your spouse. So with your friends, pick where you guys are going to hang out, the bar you're going to go at, the movie you're going to watch, or with your spouse or significant other, what we're going to watch on Netflix. See if you can practice the influence, right? Make sure you pick right so that you earn that credibility, right? And then negotiate the second time. Just practice your negotiation. And you just always be selling, man. You start watching everything you want, right?